But Allen's work has divided opinion and left even more questions unanswered.
Right. Well, one, there's a front and the back image, right? See, it's a 5'10" body, right?
There's nothing
doubled,
else
right?
like it.
The front and the back, right?
And there are some who, despite the carbon dating, continue to believe in its authenticity.
Now, they also say the carbon dating was obscured by the fire in the 1300s, too, right?
The samples that were taken, they weren't taken from the very center of
Now, I still believe it's probably Peter over Jesus. That's because of John's description of his breast as being that of a woman's, right? Now, we're not talking about man boobs, right? We're talking about a full woman's chest on the man. Who also might have had a vagina, right?
That may suggest the shroud is
And a
far
penis,
older
and a
than
penis.
claimed.
All three. Where the woman surrounds the man, right?
In a small annex
Now, of course, Peter in the 11, except for, you know, John and Paul, are more obscure about it, right? So who were,
what we are looking at in front of us,
in my mind, the good guys, John and Paul, right? The others sort of hint at it if you listen to what they said in the Gospels. Jesus said, "He that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me," and the same about the son and daughter, right? Is that a hint? Moses said, "Men are ben neem and women are ben oath," right? Still using the root word ben, right? Sons and daughters in the Hebrew is benim and ben noth, right? Using the root word ben, right? For both. Just as Adam was both their names till Adam named his wife Eve, right? That was after the sin, by the way, right? She became the mother of all, or living.
But do you take something for your brain? With an ingredient originally found in jellyfish, Prevagen is the #1 seller.
And so did Mrs. Satan. Mrs. Satan.
Prevagen, the name to remember.
It's 6 a.m.
Now, you've heard the song by the Eagles, "I've been looking for the daughter of the devil himself. I've been looking for an angel in the light," right? Well, that's why I got that theory, right? That Satan had a daughter. Of course, they don't want you to know that either, do they? Because she would still be half Adam, half Satan, right? Right. From his female side, being that he was a hermaphrodite, right? That also means Satan would have a lot of problems after he had the child and would probably commit suicide, right? Because after that, the male side wouldn't be able to get erect anymore, right? And he was the more dominant over the female, and they would both be in such pain and despair, they would commit suicide, right? Because an angel ain't supposed to have sex in that form. It's like in the movie The Prophecy with Elias Cotes and Christopher Walken. Yeah, whatever. Walken or whatever his name is. Right. Now, when Jesus appeared to Thomas, which is one of the next shows coming up, Jesus was able to appear to Thomas as he did on the cross without shedding blood, either, meaning he showed him himself on the cross with all the wounds as well in the hands, feet, and side, right? And still was alive, able to show him that, right? Which is why he said, what? My Lord and my God, my Lord and my God, right?
Introducing Life Room, where outdoor living meets
and that's what I mean too. But yet there are two different areas both men were crucified in. One was according to the true Jewish method in Jerusalem. The other would be according to the Roman Jewish method in Rome. which is why the shroud is a one-piece shroud of someone about 5'10", front and back, right? Now, even if it was a forger, right, in the 13th century, as they're implying, here's the problem with that. The forger would have to put two mannequins back to back. In other words, one would have to be upside down and one would have to be right side up, right? One would have to be facing the front and one would have to be facing the back, right? Right?
Cloth, also mentioned in the Bible. And he saw the linen wrappings lying there, and the cloth that had been on Jesus' head.
Now they're talking about the napkins.
Cloth into the laboratory, analysed what the stains are made of, and most of them are 1 part blood and 6 parts pleural edema fluid, which is a liquid that collects in the lungs when somebody dies of asphyxiation.
The Peter would have died of the same thing, you understand?
Scholars believe that most victims of crucifixion would have died of suffocation, and the fluids associated with this would be left in the lungs.
Now, another problem they say, though,
studies appear to
is unless it's draped a certain way, the cloth itself, right? If it's wrapped around the head, it's also not going to produce a clean image, right?
Now, what these experiments showed us is that, first of all, the cloth was placed on a dead body because all the blood stains coming out are absolutely incompatible with any kind of breathing movement.
Now, was the shroud over the cloth or under the cloth?
Then Joseph of Arimathea would have wrapped this cloth around Jesus' face while he was still on the cross.
But again, would they have done Peter the same in Rome? I don't know. I'm asking you to think about it, though, that way, too, because two people were crucified in the first century, similar to each other, Peter and Jesus, right? But one was in Rome and one was in Jerusalem, right? Now, both men could have produced a shroud, but one man has a male chest, and one shroud is missing. You know what I mean? There should be two shrouds, right? Not one. One from Peter and one from Jesus, right?
I should have spoken.
Now, why do I think the one we have now is from Peter, right? Or Rome?
Guskin believes that marks on the sudarium where the forehead would have been help explain how Joseph removed the body from the cross.
The only way that we could reproduce these was if the body was lying face down on the ground, so that all of this liquid and blood trickling out of the nose would move down onto the forehead. But then the body was carried face down for between 5 to 10 minutes while somebody was holding the cloth to the face.
In the tomb, the sudarium would have been removed, and Jesus then wrapped in the shroud.
So this teaches us what happened between the death of Christ and when the body was laid in the tomb.
But Guskin believes that there's an even more important reason to study the sudarium. For him, the stains on the cloth are like a fingerprint, unique to one person.
If this cloth was wrapped round the head of another person who had maybe even suffered the same kind of torture and wounds, then the stains would have a different shape and a different format.
For Guskin, this was to prove critical, because when the team compared these bloodstains on the sudarium with those on the shroud, they made an extraordinary discovery.
They matched.
The bloodstains appeared to match.
Right. But so was it Peter's upside down crucifixion or Jesus' right side up? You still wouldn't know that, right? Because both men would have to be removed from the crosses similarly, right?
Tied it to Jerusalem,
except Peter's would be more upside down, but still you would have to lay him on the ground, get him in his own tomb, right?
These records suggest it is at least 700 years older than the shroud.
Right.
How could that be?
Right. That would still put it when?
Guskin believes the dating of the shroud must be wrong.
Right.
Now that is an incredible conclusion because they could only have coincided in Jerusalem sometime before the 5th century.
Or Rome,
which says an awful lot about the dating of the Shroud of Turin and how it does not date from the medieval times, and it is in fact a much earlier cloth.
But that was still put at around 600 AD.
Despite decades of scientific scrutiny, for many, the mystery and power of the Shroud of Turin still remains.
Right.
I do think it would be possible for the shroud that wrapped Jesus to
So,
survive.
one I think might be Peter and one Jesus. Right? They were the only two crucified similarly, but one was upside down and one was right side up. And Peter would have to have the napkin too and be buried in Rome, whereas Jesus was buried and resurrected and went back into heaven. Right. Now, if Peter was resurrected too, that's because of what Jesus said about them all staying behind until all's fulfilled. Right. See what I mean? That all fits too, doesn't it? That asses, right. Not John and Paul. They helped me the most. And then the writers of the Old Testament, where I read it through on my own after the Gnostic Gospels, right? Seeing the whole truth, you were denying of Jesus the whole time.
The shroud is also a poignant
Talk to you later.